You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 369, Cut and Run. Tonight we're going to dig deeply into the second of the Bad Batch series episodes, and an episode that was a lot shorter than the first one, and had some different outcomes, I think, than I was expecting. But more importantly, let's hear what Jonesy has to say about it. Jonesy, welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight, sir?
Doing well, sir, man. We just did this a couple days ago. I like this, man. This is a good rhythm we're in. Let's do this every 2 days.
Well, they just got to release more shows more often, and then we can certainly get into that. But
we could certainly speculate a lot more, I suppose.
That's true. I mean, we could just turn a whole cup. Every 2 days we'll just speculate on a whole bunch of other stuff. Right. So
we could just cut loose,
cut and run at this point.
Oh, well.
But
failed dad joke.
Failed dad jokes. Yeah,
I still have much to learn.
Let's. Do we have any news? We don't have anything in the show notes, but I'm trying to think if there was anything that's been really big or major that's been announced. Just quickly, your thoughts on that lightsaber. Are you going to go grab that thing?
Oh, the one from Galaxy's Edge at the hotel.
Yeah.
I got to see more about it. I know the patents have been out there for a long time, and we were talking with Johnny and them about it out at May the 4th over the weekend. But I don't know. This thing has to be like super fragile, doesn't it? I mean, because the girl in the video, I mean, she's literally staying still in both positions in order to do it. But it's cool to watch. But how much is it going to be? Like $5 bills? I mean, because just the ones you build, like the one behind me here. I mean, now I think they said that one's like what, $280 or something ridiculous. Now the experience is like $280.
What did you pay for that one? Was it a lot less?
I can't remember. It's been a year and a half or so. But yeah, I think it was like 100. I mean, it was probably between $150 and $200 experience, something like that. I had to look it up, but still, it's not cheap. And now if they made it that much more expensive, and now you're going to automate the whole thing and give you an actual, refracting blade and all that good stuff. I mean, it's kind of, I'm a little scared what that price tag might be, but I'd have to think long and hard about it, especially if they make them in the classic style. So if there's a Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker lightsaber, oh man, that'd be
green.
That would be really hard. I know a lot of people would probably have a really hard time resisting an Ahsoka blade as well, or something like that. But is there one that you would, if it was $500, which of course is really stretching impulse buying to a very extreme point, right?
Right.
Is it what saber would it have to be for you to like, oh my gosh, I might actually have to pull the trigger on this?
Ew. I don't know. This goes back to that whole lightsaber episode we did, right? But like, I've always been a fan of Ezra's. In fact, you were here. You were playing, or Steph was playing with the one that
the gun one.
Yeah. I've always liked that one. As silly as that one is, Luke's green lightsaber, probably the most memorable for me growing up as a kid, because that was the one that we all wanted, especially after seeing that whole scene on the sail barge there. I don't know, man. There's some really good ones out there. I'm actually digging, even though we've never really seen them, I'm really digging a lot of the ones from the High Republic. So
yeah,
wouldn't that be cool if they tied those into there? Because you got all kinds of colors and designs, and you know what I mean. It'd be nice to see them bring those to life in a way. But
are the hilts very? I'm trying to remember them, and I don't have the book right next to me. But are the hilts very long? Or are they more?
They're about the same. They're just more ornate, I would say.
Oh, okay. I just can't remember the hilt actually, how much room there was, if they were one-handed or if they were still meant to be two-handed.
So some of them, like the double-bladed ones, have obviously a longer hilts on them. When I say ornate, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, because his skewers is really like it wraps around his hand, so it's probably not a good example.
But I would say the ones that we see come original trilogy and sequel and prequel, all of them really, they're all kind of more that industrial look. If that's really a term, I don't know. But yeah, for the High Republic, they're very like intricate, a lot of design, a lot of detail to them, more medieval looking, I guess, for lack of a better term. But hey, you know what? Let's talk about the Bad Batch before we get too far off on a topic here.
About to say, we're going to go through the reservation system now too.
People tuned in and going, what show is this?
Right.
Okay, no, we're here to talk about Cut and Run, and let's just jump into it. So give me your overall thoughts on the episode, because I kind of, on the lead in, I said this was a short episode, only 28 minutes in length, or what was it, 30 minutes-ish, around there, half an hour.
I think it was 23 minutes for the actual
23?
episode. Yeah, 23 minutes.
Oh, my goodness. Either way, it was very short compared to the first one, which is fine. Yeah. I guess I wasn't expecting this sort of a come down, and it was, and that's not a bad thing. I actually really enjoyed this episode. But what did you think?
Well, I think you had said it best in the notes. I think you had asked the question if this was the same as what was the other episde?
Sanctuary.
Yeah, Sanctuary
from Mandalorian.
Yeah, and even what was it, Deserter in the Clone Wars? It was pretty much with Rex. I mean, it was so similar to that, and a lot of beats. This really felt like a Clone Wars episode, like a traditional Clone Wars episode. The good and the bad of that, but I think mostly really, really good. I like the story overall. I mean, we got to see, again, while they're very familiar beats and they're very all this fatherly type of storytelling that we've got right now. It's still hitting the right mark. There's still the right, balance of the tension, a little bit of the tension in the relationship, the uncertainties, and man, even the tension within the team. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about that, because I'm kind of concerned about Echo, to be honest with you. But overall, I still think it's a good episode. I mean, these are still some of the better produced and the better overall experience episodes that we've had, and they still represent some of the stronger sides of storytelling that we had from the Clone Wars. What were your initial assessments of it?
Yeah, so I would say all of that, and the reason I put that in there was it too much like Sanctuary. This was what you remember in Aftermath when we were talking about that, when I said I'm worried that we were going to follow, like, there was too many parallels, too many of the same story beats of between Mando and Grogu, and now Hunter and Omega. And this one did feel like, I mean, everything from going to a far off planet, finding this sanctuary, somebody that was kind of living the simple life there. The fact that, there was danger. And at the end, he was convinced that, the best thing was to go kind of leave the child, because, the life the life that he wanted for her wasn't that life. Right. And so those were all very familiar things. I mean, the key difference was, with Grogu was Grogu didn't have a choice. He's just too young. So they were kind of making decisions for him, to some extent, right? Later on, when Ahsoka came by, there was an actual conversation that happened, and we get the sense that Grogu wanted to stay with him, right? He made the decision and made a conscious decision. And here we've got Omega clearly saying, no, I want to be with you. I don't want to go live a normal life and be on the run and all of that. I want to be with you, my kind, my people. So that was kind of the key difference. I would say, though, because we've gotten that out of the way now, I don't think they're going to go back to that. And I think from this point on, it really is, she's part of the group and she's part of the team. So we can put that to the side. So I don't know that we're going to get a lot of the same story beats. I mean, I think she's always going to be there's going to be a danger, a threat with her around, because she's a child. They are going to have to be kind of mindful of her throughout the series. There's certain things that they may or may not be able to do because she's there, and she could be a liability to that extent. But I think so far we've seen now 2 episodes, she's shown her worth, and she's shown how she can contribute to the team. Even though she can't do some of this other stuff, she is capable of doing other things. And so as long as they keep going back to that, then I think it works just fine. But overall, I would say this episode was really good. I was surprised because, again, it was a slower episode. I'm going to say slower. I know a lot of people said, oh, it's slow and, not much excitement. There was a lot of action, that sort of thing. But there was a lot more character development. And then that's credit to both episodes. Now, granted, the first one was like 70 minutes or whatever. So we had a lot of time in there for character development. But they compacted a lot of character development, I thought, in this one, specifically with Hunter and Omega. But there were still bits and pieces that I think some of the other characters were throwing out there a little bit as well.
Yeah, I think you really hit it on the head. I think this is an episode it was good that they got this out up front with no, you should be somewhere else. You deserve a better life. You should go here and do that. So it was nice it was really, I agree with you. It was really good to get that kind of out of the way now and establish that, no, you're here. We're a team now. You're part of the Bad Batch, and you're part of Clone Force 99, basically. So I think that's good to go ahead and let's move on and move forward from that. We're still going to get similar beats, though, because like you said, the child's still going to be in danger. They're still going to be chasing. It's going to be this tug of war, type of thing. We're going to see that. We can't get we're not going to be able to avoid that, I don't think.
Right.
It'd be great if they found creative ways to not have to, hit those same things, but that also makes for interesting, television too, right? So there's got to be some sort of, competition and things like that going on.
Conflict.
Yeah, conflict. There you go. And so, but yeah, so again, we're on the right track. It was back to being a very short episode. This is basically the same length episodes that we had when the show was on TV, which again, I don't think it should be a surprise. We kind of set it up that same way as well, that these are likely going to be very much like your story TV, your TV stories, except they just don't have the commercials. And I think that's okay. We've got 14 more episodes. So I think when you do them all together, it's very much gonna, it's gonna make a lot of sense why they're only 20 or so minutes, 20, 25 minutes, something like that.
Right.
But yeah, let's dig into the show though.
Yeah, let's do that. So it opens, we're on the Havoc Marauder, their ship, and I thought it was great to see both, Omega and Wrecker sitting there completely passed out, like two kids, right? If you have kids and they've been running around all day, right around 3 o'clock, they get the sleepies, sleepy time, they're just kind of in whatever position they were at. That's kind of essentially what I envisioned in my mind, was these guys are running around, literally wreaking havoc inside the Havoc, and both the kids passed out.
I got to stop you though. I love interrupting you for these type of reasons. All right. Do you have any pictures of you passed out on the floor with your kid?
Oh yeah.
Kind of like this.
Every Christmas day, right? Like by 4 p.m., it's like everybody's lights out because we've been up all night long, getting up early in the morning. So yeah, that's not uncommon.
Yeah. Those are always some of my favorite pictures to see, or a mom or a dad, just the kids passed out on the floor and the parents right there, just, halfway drooling with them.
Yeah.
That's because they're all exhausted from whatever was going on.
Everybody's tired.
Right. So anyway, please continue.
No. Well, so, and then they make the comment about how, she's got a very curious mind. And this is now, I think, the second time in the episode. So this is, I think, going to play out a little bit more. They're kind of just really hitting home this characteristic of her that she has a curious mind. She is inquisitive.
Right.
That's probably, when you look at her and you think about the situation she's been in now, where she's had to become useful or make herself useful, it's because she has been kind of thinking, like, what else can I do? Right. That's kind of playing to her strengths in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Very resourceful. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then they really just kind of touch this, and I put in here first world Mando problems, because this is really what's happening. Right. And to kind of go back again, like we just talked about here with the Mandalorian, and there are some very similar beats here. And they're not atypical, right? I mean, I think every movie, every situation you've seen where there's a older parental figure that's got a life that's adventurous or dangerous in some way, and it's a trope, right? And then they bring in a kid, they're always confronted with this. What do I do with this child? Is this the right thing? I mean, I can think of all kinds, like Hard Boiled, and what was the one with Natalie Portman in The Professional? Right. All these movies that trope is very prevalent in movies, in a lot of different genres and types of films. So they're all faced with this. And like I said earlier, I'm glad they're getting it out of the way, but it was starting to feel like, whoa, this is really just like Sanctuary now for me until the very end. But
right.
And then they approach Salakami.
Salukami.
There
you go. I never knew how to pronounce it, so I was super excited. And I have to trust Tick. I have to trust Tick, because if anybody's going to pronounce it correctly, it has to be him, because we've had so many inconsistencies with pronouncing things lately.
Yeah. So then they touch down on Salukami, and this is I want to get your thoughts on this one, because I thought it was a great moment where she walks out and she's seen like the ground for the first time, and trees and clouds, and you get the impression, the sun. Yeah. We get the impression that living on Camino is water and rain and constant dreariness. And although I kind of like all those things, but still, that's very different than what she's about to walk into. And there are shades here of Rey seeing, I've never seen this much. I didn't know there was this much green in the universe, galaxy, or whatever that line is. And then, later on when she's in Octo and she's got her hand underneath the rain and the water, right? You think about that moment, which is such a quick moment that happens in the Last Jedi. But it's significant because she's probably never experienced rain living on Tatooine. So I thought it was a really cool moment, and I'm glad they spent as much time on that, because it really sets in for you in the realization that this is very, very different for her.
There were a few moments in this episode that were really, that they really did a great job of these little, just quick touch moments that just add a little bit of that extra depth. You don't even have to say anything. And there was another one here when they're all in the house as well. But the look that she had, I mean, you're right. Just think about Camino. It's raining all the time. She said she hasn't been anywhere, right? In the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
She's only exposed to a very white, sterile environment, or it's basically pitch black and stormy and rainy with an occasional dinosaur flying by, and that's really about it. I mean, she doesn't even have television or cable, I'm assuming either. So,
no, they don't.
Or YouTube TV, she doesn't have anything. So,
nope.
For this experience, I think the parallels with Rey are excellent because it's just so different, and that she has to, she's blinded by the sun and she has to adjust to it. And I was really surprised with the dirt thing. It wasn't really prevalent right off the front of my brain that would have been something that she would have gravitated to. But you can just imagine all the sounds as well, just birds and everything going on. I mean, and you can see that Seleucami is a freaking allergy nightmare with all the pollen and everything that's in the air in this episode.
Only you would say that, but yes.
Dude, I was like sneezing just looking at it. It was terrible.
For those of you that are wondering, Jonesy has really bad allergies.
I'm allergic to everything, folks. Yeah.
Yes, everything.
Literally everything, even myself. But I agree with you. It was really fantastic to see that really humanizing element. And it was just funny because the Bad Batch just sat there and stared at her.
Right.
And Wrecker's
okay.
Is everything all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was such a great moment because even they had to kind of pause and take stock that she has no idea what she's stepped into, and every day is a new adventure for her, and it's just something that they all have to that they all are going to get to experience with her as she grows, as we go through the episodes as well. And I hope they continue to take those moments to really touch on those very small little character moments that continue to have us relate to the characters and about what they're experiencing and how they're feeling. Much less, or regardless of what these scenarios are, but we continue to see that human element of all of these characters.
Yeah, I mean, her liking dirt is like the antithesis of Anakin hating sand, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So, but no, that's not why they did that. There is one thing too, right? If she is force sensitive in some way, there's that other dynamic of that scene where she's experiencing suddenly. Not to say there's not a lot of life on Camino, but you would think with that many plants and animals and stuff all around her, she would be like overloaded, right? Sensory overload with the amount of life and midichlorians and all of that stuff too. So I don't know if that they were really kind of hinting at that in this episode. I think it was just enough for the humanistic, like you said, piece of it all. But that would be kind of a shock to her as well. Like, wow, there's a lot of life here, and I can feel it all if she does, again, indeed to be turned out to be force sensitive.
It's tough to really say what they're going to unveil with Omega as the show goes on. This episode really pulled back from if she's force sensitive, though, because I agree. If she would have been, there would have been a few things in this episode. Now, granted, like the what is it called? It's like a reek or a meerkat, not a reek, but
Nexu.
Nexu. Yeah. So some of those things I would have figured she would have sensed them, and I know for dramatic purposes you don't necessarily do that, but I pulled way back on the force sensitivity aspect of things because I agree. I think a lot of other things would have been going on, and we would have had a more pronounced reaction from her where it was just crazy. But then again, we didn't really get that with Rey either. So it take what you will. It's still they have to tell a story and still get somewhere over the next several months.
Yeah. So they make their way out to the homestead, and this is where Wrecker sets off the booby trap. And we get our first look at a little bit older now. He's got the mutton chops going on, cut version of Cut and Sue. And so let's talk about this because I know, there's a lot of questions here. And I'll kind of throw a couple of them at you. JR brought one up. Jeff brought one up a little bit a while ago about, how do they know Cut? And I think when we were talking about that in the last episode, like when we left at the very end of Aftermath, when we mentioned that they were most likely going to go to him, I think I said something like, even that I didn't know, I could not remember. And I thought, well, maybe I'm just not paying attention and there was something there. But that is a question that first and foremost, I think for those of us that sweat the details has been asked. And I think there's certainly people theorize about it. So I'm going to ask you for that one. And then also, how was he immune to Order 66, right? I mean, Rex came through, told him about the chip, so you would think that at that point he still either had his chip in there. So why wouldn't he been impacted by all that? And I've got my own theories, but what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I really want to talk the Order 66 thing, but I really don't know how they knew Cut. The Bad Batch, I mean, these guys are all over the place, so it wouldn't surprise me that they needed a place to stop or to refuel, and they would have stumbled over it. Again, they're friends with Rex, so Rex may have told them, "Hey, if you need something, this is someone you can trust." And so they might have had some other mission that crossed ways in some way. So, those all seem pretty reasonable. I'm gonna have to keep going to Rex, I think, is that person that the
touchstone
that's their common denominator there. I think with Order 66, and I was thinking about this as I was watching the show again today. I wonder if Cut has actually ever heard the Order 66, and whether or not is that the trigger. Like, what is the trigger to actually activate the chip? It's not the "Hey, go kill a Jedi."
Mm-hmm.
It's presumably, I know we've seen clones lose their minds and not hear the Order and shoot Jedi, unfortunately. But
Cup,
yeah, exactly. But we haven't heard them say Order 66 in the presence of Cut. So I don't know because there's no signs on his head that we can see that, because we saw when the others had him taken out, they had some sort of device on their head. Now, granted, they were in a medical facility, but so I don't know if you actually have to hear it. So I'm curious what the actual trigger for it is. If it actually have to hear the Order, or do you have to hear the Order from a certain person? And I'm trying to remember. I don't think Crosshair heard the Order from Palpatine, did he?
Crosshair,
so.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't even around there. They already walked off.
Yeah, but he did hear it, I think. So, so I think that's why Cut may not have experienced it, but again, there's no evidence he's had it cut out, so presumably it's still there. But I want to hear your theory though, because that's the best I've got, is that he just hasn't received the Order, and Rex probably would have been careful not to say that around him, but clearly Rex still has it at this point, so he's finding a way to get that out. We'll talk about the inhibitor chips themselves here in a minute, because I think we had some inconsistencies with the last episode that we could probably clear up a little bit.
Right. So I guess my thoughts on the Order 66 command. So first off, last episode we talked about that the clones were probably impervious to that order because in my mind it was made for their genetic code, for the regs genetic code, right? Mm-hmm. Because these guys are mutated, didn't really have an impact on them. I think they still have the chips in their heads. By the way, Tech knew, like they confirmed that, like he's known this for a long time in this episode. So that was, I'm starting to wonder, like, what else does this guy know, or what else has he been talking about? But we'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah, like he said though, he thought it was obvious.
Yeah,
he's
like,
how else would you be programmed?
Right.
But it was clear the rest of the team didn't know.
Yeah, they didn't know. Like,
and I think that was the thing. I think we got a little inconsistent when we met a few days ago. I think that was one thing that was a little unclear, that they did really clarify for us now that Tech knew, but really no one else did aside Omega.
Okay, so going back to the chip. So for him though, so either a couple things are happening here, and I don't know that we'll ever get the explanation, to be honest, because unless he's coming back, he's gone, right? And I don't know that we're going to see him again. But
I'd be surprised if we didn't. Actually, I think this one we'll actually see him.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'd be down with that. But he could, like, what if he is? Maybe he's genetically altered as well. I mean, there's one theory out there that he is mutated as well, or his genes have been mutated in some way, which is what gave him kind of more of the free will thing anyway. So maybe, I think that's probably a little bit far-fetched. And you got to really dig for that one. It could just be that he's been detached for so long from the clone army that when that order came out, it was just kind of like, oh, maybe he heard it, maybe he felt it or whatever, but he didn't, he's just so free-willed at this point, right? He left that life behind, and that life means nothing to him. So you'd be asking him to suddenly, the chip would have to reprogram him again, because he's been reprogrammed already just to live a simple life of a farmer as a father figure with kids. And if you've ever been that's a lot, right?
Right.
So I don't, maybe there's a part of him that just because of his own free will, he was now somehow immune, or it didn't impact him like it did all the other clone troopers. I do like the idea that kind of what you said, where it's just, well, hold on before I get there. So the wire, I was thinking about this too. Like, if it's just a command word, then he would not have heard it, right? I think that's what you were kind of saying. So there was nobody there to say execute Order 66. I'd be curious as to what happens if suddenly that was said now and he happened to hear it. Would he churn, that kind of thing? But then I started getting into like the details. Like I was starting to really think about this, and I thought, well, what kind of communication? If it's not that, if it's not a command, an audible command that they hear, and it's a chip that they have a signal that goes out to you, like what tech did they come up with that would send that? Because I'm thinking Wi-Fi. You know, this is 5G. How does that work? You know, what if they're in a bad area? They don't get cell coverage or something like that. Like all that stuff plays in your head. So I don't know. I mean, it could just be Star Wars science, and we won't ever get in the grand picture of things. It really doesn't matter, right? I mean, I think we would all agree that we're all adults and we can just kind of get past it. But it is fun to talk about, and it is fun to theorize. And I do like wanting to know, and I do like knowing. So who knows? I have a feeling they're going to put all that behind them. I think there's too much other story that they're going to talk about, unless as they're traversing the galaxy and they're doing what they do, they're running into clones that are in some kind of a state, or this becomes a big issue later on where they're suddenly trying to free the clones. I think we kind of speculated on that in the last episode, where they're going around like the A-Team, which is kind of what this has turned into. But they're going around like the A-Team, and yeah, I mean, they're on the run and doing whatever, but they start to realize that, hey, those are all our brothers out there. Let's really stick it to the man, aka the Empire, and let's get these guys converted. Let's get chips out of their head. Let's get them awoke in some way. You know what I mean? Right. And if that becomes the focal point, or if that becomes kind of one of the strategies or plot threads or storylines, then I think we are going to get into the details and understand all the intricacies of the inhibitor chip and what does it inhibit versus what does it reprogram, and I mean all those details I think are going to start to surface if that is indeed a thread that kind of runs through the series.
Right. And to go back to why the chip maybe not working, I mean, you and I are very familiar with tech or technology in general, right? Oh, yeah. You have failure rates, and there are millions of clone troopers out there.
It's the 80-20 rule.
Well, and we've seen far fewer than the 20 rule so far. We've seen literally a handful of clones have something wrong. And so it's very plausible and maybe highly probable that the chip is just defective in cut. Because again, like you said, and you so well pointed out, that he already has this ability to disconnect from the clone army. He's able to see that he wants something else, or he wanted something else, and he actually went and got it, and he's got himself a looker that can shoot with Sue. And so I tell you what, man, she gets me. Whew, she's a little.
It's a Felix.
Yeah, man.
It's a Lucas, man.
Man, that magenta type. Okay, anyway. So, but yeah, but so that it's effective is entirely probable, I think, at this point, that it's just not something that just worked. And even if he heard it, it might be like Crosshair, where it's just maybe it works on some level, but not entirely. And again, Rex definitely would have talked to him about it. Sounds like he did, but at the same time, how much detail they go into, clearly not enough to really trigger anything, for the good soldiers to follow orders type of thing to come around.
Yeah, and as far as going back to the original question of how do they know cut? I think Rex is, again, I think he's just kind of the nexus there, the conduit, the connected tissue, all the proverbial stuff there for them. That's probably likely. At the very beginning, when they've got all those missions that they're coming back in on, which, by the way, somebody in Reddit pointed this out. I'm not going to take credit for it, but there were 55 missions. If you count all the hash marks, there's 55 of those. And he comes back and says they just wrapped up another 11. You add that together and you get 66. So,
oh man,
that wasn't me. I can't take credit, but I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. So kudos to whoever that did that. I should have got the name, but anyway, so that was, so in that, I mean, they've obviously been out and they've been doing things. So maybe they did have a mission out there at one point, and ran into him and, realized that maybe at that time that, hey, he was a unique individual like themselves. And that's kind of how they bonded or whatever.
Yeah. And we know there were Seleucamite troopers, right? They were the ones with like a more of a crimson type of color, I think, on their helmets back. I'm trying to remember. Some of this was Legends Clone Wars material, but I forgot who they were led by. But actually, I have the toy. No, I have a toy. That's why I know about this. The Seleucamite trooper had a speeder bike or something with him.
Really?
I believe so.
Go dig that up. No, not right now.
Okay. Well, you're on your own for a while.
All right. So the next question is, he asked where's Crosshair, and this is what it bothers me a little bit about this. Okay. The only thing that really bothered me about this is when he asked where's Crosshair, they all kind of look down and, it's like, oh, yeah, that's really awkward kind of thing. But I'm starting to wonder too, like, wouldn't the Bad Batch, and I really don't want to guess this too much because I am enjoying the show, so don't take this the wrong way, but it just feels like for the trope of we're all brothers, band of brothers, that kind of thing, to leave him behind, even if he was converted, it doesn't feel right to me. It feels like they would have gone back, and maybe they are still going to. Maybe that is going to at some point surface, right? In addition to reviving, if you will, all of the clones and bringing back their humanity. Part of that is some ultimate mission of rescuing Crosshair and getting him out of there. But it does feel, as I was watching this, and I thought, they didn't really have a reaction. I mean, they did, but it was just kind of like a heads down kind of thing. Like, yeah, man, that sucks. That guy's gone. But it feels like they would have done more. Maybe they should have done more. And again, I don't want to armchair quarterback this or say that's the right way to go. But yeah, it did make me think about that. Like, if I was cut, I'd be like, well, so what? Y'all just left him? Like, you didn't try to rescue him even, or like strap him down? Or, I mean, it was just kind of like, no, we got to go. See ya. And I get under the circumstances, maybe it wasn't, ideal, especially with Omega there. That was kind of the X factor and having a child around. But I don't know. There's a part of me that feels like they would not have left them behind, right? If they are truly a band of brothers and as close as they are, they would have found a way to grab him and take him against his will. And let's just figure out this whole chip thing and figure out what's going on with him a little bit later. But
right. And I think some of it is we have to exercise a little bit of patience here. So they did talk about, so before they left Camino, they were like, where's Crosshair, right? And it wasn't until I think they had every intention of going back to see him and get him, that he would come with them, because they didn't know what had happened to him.
They did talk about it, right? You're right.
Right. Yeah. So I think that was the intention. Now with Cut might just get it. I mean, he's a day away removed from having some sort of conversation with Rex. We're only probably a day or a few days away from their reaction with Crosshair. So it's still really raw and something difficult to talk to, and probably difficult to understand and be able to communicate out like what exactly happened. Because I still don't think they quite understand what happened and that was even possible. And I'm with you. I think that they do at some point, they do go back and get Crosshair, because even though they had a bit of a contentious relationship at times, and Crosshair is not kind of, he really is a smart ass, and all the time. Yeah. So it's I think it's so he's part of the team. He is a brother, and I think at some point, even with the regs, they still have some connection with these guys. I mean, like we've seen them be able to do with Cody and with Rex. And so for them to be able to, put some of that behind them and go and try to push and help isn't, I think, out of the realm of possibility. And I think Cut understands some of that as well, that, what, these guys wouldn't have left him behind without a really, really, really good reason. And it's just a matter of time before they go back and get him. But you can't just, flip a Yui and then head right back into Camino when the whole place is on high alert and you're just trying to escape with your lives with a 10-year-old girl.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fair. And like I said, there's like you said, there's plenty of story, right?
It came out really harsh. I didn't mean 10-year-old girl in a negative way. I just meant like a child.
Yeah,
right?
having a child, right. I mean,
but something of a liability of sorts right now, or at least it felt like to them at the time, right?
Correct. Yeah, there's plenty of time to kind of get to that. So we'll see if that certainly plays out. And then we get the line of, which was like, they didn't really dwell on this very long, other than, oh yeah, Rex, he was just here. Man, you just missed him. He was here yesterday. Well,
I love Echo's reaction. He was so excited.
Yeah. But he hasn't seen him in, I don't know, it's been a while now at this point.
Right.
And just knowing that Rex is alive is probably gonna have a lot of emotion from him. But so that I think that line is in there because I think eventually, well, we know they're going to catch up with them. And sorry if that's a spoiler. If you've seen the trailers for the season, then you know that he's clearly with them at some point. But yeah, I think they threw that in there just to say, okay, the trail is pretty hot. They're right on the heels of him, and so that's why out of this huge galaxy, right, they're going to be able to kind of find his path. Right, they're just that close, and I think that's the only reason. But we get this is the part where we now get into Omega and Tech talking about the chips. So we've kind of already discussed that a little bit here, but there was an interesting line there about, I think it was, who was it, Tech, or I think it was Echo, who had the astute observation of, these clones had numbers, and now the people that used to have, they use names, but now the people that had names now have numbers, and I'm probably screwing all that up, but it is a interesting kind of role reversal here, because they are setting everybody up with chain codes, and and all of that, which we'll get into in just a little bit here. But
Right. Yeah, when they were on the ship trying to crack the code and all of that good stuff. Yeah, him and Tech were talking, and absolutely, that's exactly what it was. It was just the irony of, we've been fighting to have individuality, and now we're taking it away from them.
Right.
And I think you pointed out the real irony, though, is that it's the people who had the numbers with wanted the names are now the ones enforcing the people with names to get a number.
Numbers.
Yeah. So it's that enforcement aspect thing. It's just backwards.
Yep.
And the whole thing is like, how can, and I think they addressed this in the first episode. How can this be okay? You fought for years to prevent this kind of tyranny and this kind of behavior. And now they're already acting like stormtroopers. I mean, they're shoving people to the ground and everything else at the spaceport. So,
well, and that's,
we'll get there. I know.
Well, we'll get there.
Yeah.
I've got a question about that too, because it goes back to the inhibitor chip. Like,
yeah.
But what is there? We'll touch on that here in a minute. Okay. The two kids come in, and I'm gonna screw their names up. Sahi, I don't know, and Jack. I only know that because I think that was in the subtitles. I don't know if they actually said it, but maybe Wrecker does. But they called him Uncle Wrecker, so that right there establishes, okay, they have been here. He's done things when he's probably taken them out, and they've gone fishing together, or he's done horsey rides with them, whatever. But he's definitely, again, he's just the big kid of the show, which is fine. I don't mind him in that role because as long as he's kind of a brute and still can smash heads together and stuff like that, I think it's going to work out well for his character. But
I liked it. I think it fits Wrecker perfectly too, because he's kind of a meathead a bit, but he's also, and like you say, he's a bit childlike at heart, but I think he just has a big heart. Yeah. I mean, even when Omega gets in trouble later, he's like, "Are you all right, kid?" I mean, sure, he's brusque about it, but I think we talked about it last week or a few days ago. He's like that crazy uncle you got, that's just off the chain, but you love him anyway because he just does all these funny things and you just can't help but love him.
He's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and Wrecker's fitting that to a T.
Hunter's double take.
Oh,
talk about that one. He threw that in there.
Yeah, this was great. So the kids came in, like you were saying, and they never see kids. So they were super excited that Omega was there. And so as they were leaving, Omega kind of holds back and gets checks with Hunter, right? This kind of unspoken, is it okay? Is this all right? Mm-hmm. And of course, he gives her a bit of a smile, and, she goes on out, and he's just sitting there watching her go, taking a drink, a cup. And so he turns around and like everyone's staring at him. And it was just that perfect moment of like, what? And it was just great because he lingered in just like you would expect a parent to, just watching their kid go off, and you just kind of have this moment of, I don't know, peace or joy, whatever it might be, maybe excitement because they're out of your hair for 5 seconds. I don't know. but it was just this really nice moment where when he turned around, just everybody's like looking at him, and the double take again. This is the second moment I was talking about a few minutes ago. There's little things like this in the show. We talked about it, like the nervous leg twitch with Tech in the last episode, and moments like this that they're really hitting these notes like amazingly well. The attention to detail of human interactions and how we behave when we do things is just fantastic. And it's painting a really cool picture for Hunter as he continues to grow and understand what it means to be the caretaker of a kid, even if you don't want to say he's a parent, but the caretaker of a kid and be responsible for them and have other people recognize something in you that you don't quite yet recognize yourself. And that was kind of what I took away from it. It was just a really kind of heartwarming moment. I just caught myself smiling about it.
Yeah, it's a great moment. And honestly, I don't think I would have pegged, of all people, Hunter, who leads us. He's the Rambo kind of figure leading the Bad Batch and all these.
He's
missions.
Got a skull tattooed on his face.
Right. Yeah. But I never pictured him as the helicopter parent. And there was kind of it's kind of that halfway moment, like you said, where, and I think we talked about this in The Mandalorian too. Mm-hmm. When in the same episode in Sanctuary, when the kid goes away, right? When Grogu walks away, you can see Mando. He's kind of like, I don't know about this, because it is kind of there's some hesitation there as a parent. There's certainly a little bit of anxiety about, okay, I don't know if this is really safe because I've never really let them go, and so you kind of let them go, and you're like, wow, I could really get used to this. I kind of like not having this kid attached to me all the time. So It's probably some of that moment, but it was great to see that, again, all people, it was Hunter that was kind of living through that, which speaks to the relationship again, that bond between both of them.
Right.
We get into this question that Cut asks, and it's a pretty a deep question because it cuts right, no pun intended, right? It cuts right to the backstory on Omega and asked,
Yeah.
what is her purpose? He says the Kaminoans don't do anything without purpose, right? Everything they do is purposeful, and so
Mhm.
he's suggesting that she was made genetically altered for a reason, for a purpose. And he asked, what was that? And my goodness, when Hunter says it doesn't matter, I went, what? Like, yes, no, it does matter. And of course, existential moments and all that. It was really, it is going to come out. I mean, we're going to find out eventually, and there's no question in my mind. But I don't understand why that wouldn't be important to him, honestly. I mean, I get what he's trying to say, and he's trying to be the bigger person and not be so maybe petty about it all. But, I don't know. I kind of would want to know.
Yeah, well, and I think it's a couple of things, right? So these guys are usually very mission focused. They have a task, they execute it, they do what they have to do, they get in, they get out. Hunter sees this as a very temporary type of situation, right? I think he's already it's already going in his mind that he needs to have that detachment from her, because Cut and Sue are going to be the best place for her to be, to be safe, to be cared for, the things like that, the things that he knows. Somehow he knows that this is what children need, and this is what the clones never had, right? And we learned some of that throughout the Clone Wars. But I think this is one of those times where he's trying to detach from that so he doesn't have to know it. So while I don't know that he believes that it doesn't matter, it's one of those moments where you just shake your head. No, look, it just doesn't matter right now.
Right.
This is the task at hand. I can only focus on this, because that other stuff, I don't know how to interpret that. His brain can't figure that out, because it's just in turmoil of what do you do with a child? What do I do with these emotions and these feelings I have of, whatever connection I have to Omega might be. And so as I'm doing more of that, it was just more of a, not right now, Cut. We can't have this conversation right now. Come talk to me, in 6 months or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, he's got the hardest mission of all, which is parenting,
Right.
So who knows? Maybe this turns into 4 men and a baby. We'll see. And then he, so then Cut, is talking about his family. And I think this is the line that really sticks with Hunter, mm-hmm. and why he comes around at the very end to, really kind of thinking that the best thing for Omega is for her not to be with them. But Cut says, I have to do what's best for them being his kids. Right. And that's every parent should always have that first and foremost in your mind. That's just Albert's little lesson to you on life in general. But yeah, I mean, it does. And it resonates with anybody that's a parent. And, I think that was an eye opener for him. And I think it really called to question, what was he doing? Like in his mind, at least in that moment, like, what am I doing here? Right. I'm sitting here bringing this kid along. I was really gung ho about it because she's one of us and all that. But yeah, I mean, look, he's watching these kids play and sees the life that they live, and they are free of, I mean, the empire's around and things have changed, but yeah, I mean, they're living a life that's pretty safe and secure. And why wouldn't any parent want that for their child, rather than jumping around from system to system and planet to planet and getting shot up and fighting the empire and all that? So, I mean, and it really sticks with him. Right? And it's going to ultimately play into his decision to send Omega off with Cut and Sue, rather than allowing her to stay with them.
Right. And we get that here in just a few minutes too, when they have to rescue Omega from the Nexu, when Sue says that kids are going to find a way to get in trouble. And I just laugh, because it's just always so true, right?
Yes.
They're always like, you got into what? Like, how is that? How did you get everything in your hair? I don't understand how that's possible, but somehow they do it.
I told you not to grab that Sharpie.
Right. Why did you do it? I don't know. It was there. I thought I'd see what it did. I told you what it was going to do. But it's not only that, but then her response to that, not only are they going to get into trouble, but it's their job to protect them. It's their job to take care of them, right? And you get this nice balance of things. And I think things like that really are starting to, Hunter's having to try to figure that out. And because he has that scared moment, or scared parent moment, rather, when Omega ventures out past the fence. She's just trying to be helpful. She wants to go out there and get the ball. And she comes back and she's in grave danger. And man, like I said, Cut's got a lovely lady there climbing with a rifle on the roof and able to shoot this thing. And man,
again, Sanctuary, good shot, right? You've got a female character who's good with a rifle, but all right, sorry.
I like that little smirk she's got too. Anyway, I'm dwelling way too much on this. But so anyway, they protect Omega and they come back, and Hunter's first reaction is much like most parents' reaction.
Yes.
Like, what the hell are you thinking? I told you, why are you? I mean, it's just one of those things. Until you have that experience, you're overwhelmed with fear and with concern, and just you're terrified, and you're very core that you could have lost the thing that might be most important to you, or in our case is most important to us, just settles in, and you just can't help but have this outburst of emotion. And then you see the exact opposite of that with Cut, who's already got this experience, and he comes in there, and it was just very humanizing moment for Cut too. Let me take a look at you. You all right? Yeah, you're okay. And she just wants to be held, to be taken care of again. And then we get Sue and Hunter having a bit of a recap on that. But I thought that was a really good sequence as well. And while Hunter yelled at her, I thought it was still just a very parental moment. We all have these moments that we're not always proud of, but they do happen. And then we go and talk to the kid, just like they do at the end of the episode. The two of them have a little chat. It's very high level, but
Right.
but again, they start to see each other and what each of them kind of want and what each of them are willing to do. And I think those are the moments we want to keep seeing some of those, maybe not overkill, but some of those are really great, and they're fun to see.
Yeah, and I think since we're talking about it, that I don't know, it doesn't really matter how long you've been parenting for. It's all relative to the danger that's experienced, right?
Absolutely.
You have this visceral, like you said, emotional moment, and in that, believe it or not, deep down, there is the sense of relief and the understanding that at least they're okay. It just gets completely overrun by all the other emotion. And eventually, you finally get to that point and you're like, okay, now that I'm over this. Yes, I'm so glad that you're safe. And that's really the only thing that matters. And for Cut, he's experienced enough to know that, okay, yes, he probably didn't have that emotion, one, because it's not his kid. It's always different when it's not your kid. But yeah, he's pointing out to Hunter that, hey, look, this is, it's still okay, right? This is all that really matters, is that the kid's fine, and, a lesson learned kind of thing. So,
right.
But it was a great moment. I mean, and this is, there was plenty of these moments, these parental moments in this episode, which I think speak to you and I, as well as anybody else who's, a parent watching this stuff, much like we experienced when we were going through all the Mando episodes and some of those moments as well.
Did you notice the rest of the team's reaction when this was happening with
No,
Cut?
I didn't pay attention.
They were just in utter shock.
Different?
They were just totally in shock. They were like, what is going on? Yeah, what? Well, and like, what is he doing? Like, who is this person, kind of thing?
Right.
I mean, you can just tell they've just never seen this kind of emotion and caring come from a clone before. So again, they're all in completely uncharted waters.
So they get from here. They go into town, and there's this conversation about how to disappear. Where Hunter's talking to Cut about how do you disappear, right. And he says, you got to put being a soldier behind you and make a new life, right. Which I think is another thing that is going to stick with Hunter. And we may not see the end to this one until much later. But I put in the notes whether or not this was some kind of foreshadowing for. I mean, certainly it's happening for Cut. Yeah. But I'm wondering if anybody, we can still at some point speculate about who's going to make it out of the series, who's going to make it into the second series, how long is the series going to go. Mm-hmm. But I'm just wondering if they're foreshadowing here in that at some point Hunter is going to take this advice, and somewhere he's going to go ahead and, retire and put the soldier behind him. And maybe that is with Omega. Maybe we get this kind of like a, Stranger Things thing with 11 and what's his name, Sheriff, whatever, where they're kind of living their own life out in the middle of the woods somewhere and all of that. But that would be, that would hark back to this moment where Cut tells him, like, the only way to get past all this is you have to put your past behind you. That soldier stuff, you've got to pack it away, put it away, never bring it out again. That's the start to becoming hidden and to disappearing, if you will.
Yeah, it actually was very reminiscent of Logan with Professor X, and they've escaped to the country. They're completely secluded. Things aren't going so well. But I mean, again, it's a common trope. It's a common story arc. But I think at some point, all the clones that are freed, this is the only choice they have, because it doesn't make sense to go and fight this army at this point. Because Saul even said it himself. They're not in the position to do it yet. They will be, but they can't do it right now. And so they have to be smart about things. And so, but Cut's figured that out, right? He's got to lay low. But I mean, even Cut is starting to see the writing on the wall that there's very few places in this galaxy that are likely going to be all that safe going forward. And they're just going to have to be, and again, I think you have a great point. They're going to have to be probably more and more remote. Now, the good thing is that Cut and Sue have lived a farmer type of life. So they will adapt, and they're perfectly okay with that as long as the family's safe. And, but I think all the clones are going to have to come to terms with this. And I think because we know that Rex is probably coming to the same kind of terms. He's probably going through a lot of the same challenges that the Bad Batch are, on top of his own inhibitor chip issue.
Yeah, it's a big galaxy, right? So there's plenty of places for them to escape to at some point. We get into chain codes, which I think is going to be explored quite a bit, honestly, at this point, and how they work and all of that. I mean, we saw them by the time we get to Mando, they're still around. I think Boba Fett threw his up there at some point. So I don't know. Do you have any thoughts around it, or it's pretty straightforward to me as far as how they are, what they are.
Yeah. It's like your social security card, basically.
Well, and that's, yeah. So, I saw a lot of, and I'm not throwing shade at anybody, but I saw a lot of people going, well, this is horrible that the Empire did that. I'm like, we have, like you said, social security cards. We have driver license numbers. You can't get anywhere without an ID. And that's all for the reason of honestly tracking you to understand where you're going and make sure that, you're doing all the right things and you don't have felonies and all kinds of stuff. It's not,
If anything, it's more surprising the Republic didn't have this in place already.
Exactly. The Republic is just kind of like, yeah, whatever, man.
Yeah, cool. Like, no, it was like, yeah, no borders anywhere. It's like driving across the states in the U.S., right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually a little bit surprised. I know I'm not trying to defend anything the Empire's doing, because clearly, I think that's the thing we have to be careful about. We're not defending the Empire's motives, but it's just surprising. Like, okay, yeah, I would expect them have a database of everybody and be able to look them up, at least find basic information about who they are and maybe where they were born or something like that. Because again, like you said, we have identification out the wazoo, and it's just part of our normal life. And again, some of this is for safety and for security, right? How do you control, certain aspects of things and make sure that the people who would do you harm don't have the opportunity to do you harm? And these are mitigation type of things. So again, Empire is not exactly, a purist of mind when it comes to these things. They're not altruistic in their motives, but at the same time, I don't know. But then we get a very young Agent Callus telling us how wonderful and how generous the Empire is, right? This was Callus, right? On the big, what's it called? The hologram.
Was that him?
I'm pretty sure that was Callus.
Oh, I didn't catch that if it was.
Looked very young, but I think that was him.
Did he have like the full mutton chop kind of thing?
No, he was very clean shaven,
Did he have his helmet on, or that?
No, because that's more Imperial based, 20 years later. But yeah, no, I'm pretty sure this was a very, very young Callus.
Man, kudos to you. I didn't catch that. I'll have to go back and watch. It's only been a day, so
you can't hear the voice very well, and he does sound younger, maybe. But I'm pretty sure this was him. But man, he was surely bestowing the virtues of their glorious empire
and the prosperity,
generosity of your empire.
The only thing about chain codes, though, here, I will say this. The only bad thing about them, though, is if these chain codes allow you to track them, right? If they somehow, through the magic of Star Wars science, like we saw in Mandalorian, being able to track people down with these chain codes, with those, whatever the trackers are, what he's using, okay, then fine. Yeah, that's probably going too far, right? That's probably invasion of privacy, and they don't need to know that. But if it's just a number to assign to you,
okay,
makes sense to me.
And now we're going to get way off topic. So with Boba Fett in the chain code,
the first time.
I'm sorry, I can't help it. With why would Boba Fett's chain code include Django? If this stuff didn't exist, and I don't know why a bounty hunter would have a chain code anyway, to be honest with you, but why would it include? There's just a little bit of continuity. This is really nitpicky, folks. I get that, but some of this is like, okay, we've introduced this thing, and we're going back to the well again.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're just kind of getting it just gets a little bit messier with the implementation of it, and hey, maybe it's been in the galaxy and now the Empire is just enforcing it everywhere. Maybe it was just on the core worlds. Here I am explaining things. Let's get Pablo Hidalgo on the phone. He'll explain it all to us.
No, he won't.
Oh, okay.
He'll give us a really obscure answer and then make us go ponder ourselves and life meaning for days on end.
I hate pondering myself.
Me too. Okay. All right. So we get to the chain code. We're done with that. Well, the other thing was the ships themselves have them as well. But okay, right. We know that, right? This is all part and parcel for what we know is going to come. So we get back to the homestead, and this is where Omega gets in trouble for going past the fence line, foreshadowing what's going to happen a little bit later. And the Empire is kind of locking down all public transportation. So they're putting like they're literally like, what do they call those? Mag clamps on the ships. Very similar to what we saw in Solo with the Falcon. But they're putting those on there, which was kind of interesting. Like, why would they show that? And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense because this is going to play into how they get into the shipyard and, you know, get their chain codes and all that stuff a little bit later. But yeah, we find out that Cut really, he's trying to get his family off the planet, but he can't because if he does go and try to register, they're going to flag him as a deserter, which almost happens at the very end, but we'll get to that here in a little bit. And he's just, there's a great moment in there where they're kind of just talking about parenting. And again, this is all kind of hitting Hunter in a very significant way about, you know, what's right. And, you know, that, you know, he's seen somebody like Cut, you know, put as much time and as much effort, and he's putting his family first, which is what happened in the episode with Rex. You know, he put his family first, and by that he put himself first in the line of fire and told Rex, you know, if they come up here, kill him, because Rex at that point was like, he had one arm because he'd been shot or something. They gave him a blaster. But yeah, I mean, he's seeing this as Rex saw it, that he is putting his family first, and so for Hunter, that sinks in even further now, and which is ultimately going to lead him to kind of make that decision again, like we said, to keep Omega out of all of this as much as possible.
Right.
Well, let's see. And then, you know, the whole fake chain codes and all that. So at that point, she does go past the marker, and the Nexus shows up, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, we saw him kind of lurking prior to. So you kind of thought, oh, this is going to happen.
When the ship came in, he was
that's right,
attacking some things. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got to see that little Nexus was there. So she gets in trouble, right? We already talked about it, so we'll skip over that and you know, the reaction that everybody had. But she ultimately turned out safe, and she goes back into the ship. And this is where it was a pretty poignant moment where she's in there, her being Omega. She's in the ship. She's sitting down. She takes off the little head amulet thing, circlet that she's wearing, and she's kind of holding it. And you got to think she's thinking about Nale Se, right? The only mother she's probably ever had, which is poignant given tomorrow's Mother's Day. But if it does feel like she is missing her, and she is maybe, I don't know if she's having second thoughts or regrets about it, but you know, any kid that's been separated from their parents is going to experience this, right? Unfortunately, they're going to have these moments where they do break down, and they remember, as much as they want this life, sometimes it's easier to think about the good at the other life and really focus on that and start missing that. Right. And then vice versa, right? It'll probably switch a little, you know, at some point. But yeah, I thought it was an interesting moment. And I think it speaks to that whole mother-daughter relationship that they may have had, whether it was intentional or not. And this certainly reinforces Nale Se trying to allow the Bad Batch to escape with her so that she could live a better life rather than the life that she's probably expecting to happen on Kamino.
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, she's just out there. I think another point of her, I don't know, innocence of it, she's just looking at the sunset too. And just like, what is this world that I've stepped into? And I thought it was going to be this perfect scenario with Hunter. And now he hates me. He's angry with me. Yeah. And why did I ever leave Nale Se? But I know that's not what I want. Yeah. I mean, it's just got to be a lot of conflict going on with her right now. And, and of course, then she's kind of stuck in the wrong place at the wrong time, when it ends up being the right place at the right time, I guess. Yeah.
And this is where we talked about this, but you know, the kids will always get in trouble. I think they repeated that line twice. I think Stu says it and Cut say it both, but kids are always going to get in trouble. It's our job to protect them. And that's when he finally clicks and says, okay, you know, this is not the soldier life is not for her. This is where he asks Cut to go ahead and take care of her for him. And they make mention that I think it's Hunter who says this is what she needs and not what he wants. Right. What he wants is to keep her around. What she needs is to actually be safe and be with the family, and vice versa. And as well, I mean, it's probably what Omega wants. But in his mind now at this point, he realizes, okay, this is not what she needs at all. And so he's trying to put himself in Cut's position and think about the kid first, think about her feelings, her, well-being first. And this is going to be the first step in doing all of that.
Right. Yeah. And he actually completely avoids sharing how he feels about it. He just goes straight to, no, this is what she needs. This is what's best for her. And again, not really wanting to admit or come to terms with what's going on in his head and his heart.
Yep. We cut to Tech and Echo. Again, they're talking about chain codes and all of that. We get the
Echo wants to argue all the time. You know, so I said I'm worried about Echo. Like, Echo is just always button heads and just seems very unhappy most of the time.
He's had a hard life, man.
Yeah, I get that. No, I love Echo, but I mean, it just seemed like he just doesn't get along with the group. He still feels very much like the outsider in the group, and is just constantly, bumping heads. And even Tech takes a shot at some point, with a little jab. And it was just, I just started to, I saw it in the first episode, and it was really front and center on this episode, where practically nothing Echo had to say was very positive. And so I don't know.
Maybe that's intentional.
That's the thing. I don't know if this is a thing or what.
It could be, I don't know. It's probably not. It's probably not far-fetched to think it's intentionally being written that way, so that there is some conflict between him, and to kind of show that he is technically an outsider, even though he's not really. Even though he's with them, he's truly not like one of the Bad Batch members. But
right,
maybe he's just the voice of reason, or maybe he's where he's butting heads because he's doing and externalizing a lot of the things that we're thinking and saying as the viewer. Who knows?
Maybe so. Maybe he just doesn't have a filter, but none of them really have a filter.
M. Letterer 71 has done the homework and says the hologram announcement was from Vice Admiral Rampart, according to Wikipedia. Huh. So, spoiler alert. Last episode I said there's another guy that's coming who's one of the antagonists, and I was like, I don't want to say anything because it's a spoiler, so I probably just spoiled it. It's not a big deal. They're going to announce him, I think, in the next episode. Officially, you're going to see him. I've seen the model of him already, but that is Rampart is going to be the name of he is like the callus of this episode. Now, again, to your point, still, I didn't see him. I wasn't even paying attention, so I wouldn't probably have even recognized him. But
it made sense if that was the character, then they modeled him kind of in that same veil. Then I could see why I was a little misled there.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if that is even true, because I don't think they credit. Like, if you look at the credits, which I pay attention to, which I know you do too, but I looked into, there was no voice credit for Rampart. So maybe it's somebody just speculating. But no, thanks for doing that. That was cool of you to do. Okay, so they're talking about the plan. So the plan is to go to get behind enemy lines, if you will, get into the shipyard area, sneak into what was it called? I don't remember what that place was called, but they were going to steal some of these cards and falsify these chain codes for all four of them plus Omega. And his idea was to have their ship impounded with them on it. They didn't know Omega was on the ship as well, so that way they could get into that area and then steal the cards. And of course, there's a lot of information that Tech is aware of. How he got it, we don't know.
He's Tech.
But he's Tech. Yeah, exactly.
He's like, well, I just learned about all this, but yeah, I can forge it. Yeah, no problem.
You open up the locker. Don't worry. I know there are going to be cards in there. You should see some cards. And I'm thinking, how does he know this stuff? But again, it's Star Wars, and that's not really important. But so that's the whole plan. And I thought it was cool. Like you said, we got to see. We were making fun of Echo and his little flathead screwdriver thing, but we got to actually see him use it and.
Couple different times, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was,
only successful once, but yeah,
whatever.
Right.
Hey, more than R2. Half time that guy's not successful either.
Hey, if you're batting 330 or 500 in baseball, man, you're a billionaire. So
yes, that's very true. But yeah, they called it Scomp. He says Echo heads off to. I said he heads off to Scomp. He says you're going to need to Scomp in, and I looked up. I didn't know if that was really a word or if that's a Star Wars word, but that's exactly what it's. SCOMP. In the subtitles. Maybe it is, and I'm not familiar with the word, but even in my notes it came up as I've misspelled something, but I guess that's what we're going to call it now. So anytime you see a droid or Echo plug in and that thing starts churning and Death Star plans are coming out, or you're making fake IDs, the chain codes, that's called scomping. You heard it here first.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can we copyright it?
So let's see. Omega takes the fake chain cards, right? That was pretty intense, where they're kind of getting closer and closer. Very reminiscent of Solo in that moment where they're trying to get out of there. Right. And again, this is where she makes herself useful. She grabs the cards. I thought she was going to program these. Like I need to go back and watch it again. And to be fair, I've only seen it like 3 times, but I thought they weren't done programming the cards, and she finished programming them and then grabbed the cards and ran off. And if that's what happened, which I don't think it is, but in my head I was thinking, oh, okay, so remember we talked about one of the theories being she has all of the other abilities of the Bad Batch. Mm-hmm. So that means she would have demonstrated Crosshair's ability in the first episode and her reprogramming these cards is either echoes or more likely texts, and being able to have the technical savvy out of nowhere to just kind of reprogram these cards. I need to go back and watch it. It could be tinfoil for all we know. Maybe they were done with them and she just grabbed them, ran off. That's probably the more simple answer here. But nonetheless, she made herself useful by going out there and, bird dogging the cards for them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if she does have the ability, I can't wait for her to, curl a power droid.
A gonk droid. Yeah.
Yeah. Gonk.
All right. Where are we? I got off on a tangent there.
So she just swiped the cards. She's going to go deliver them to them. And they had to send she was going to run into trouble. And so they sent Wrecker back.
Yes.
To try to help her out.
Who smashes that poor little RT in it. That's a cool looking RT in it, by the way.
Yeah. He also, I don't know if you noticed, he had a big old dent in it too.
Yeah. Well, afterwards.
Yeah.
Wasn't it when Wrecker bonked him on the head?
Yeah. I mean, usually they don't go through the effort of showing the damage. So they just kind of do it and they fall over and they don't go through the animation.
Yep. Unless you're Boba Fett and you got, the dent on your helmet forever. Let's see. So Omega shows up with the 5 cards and she's like, "Oh, there must have been a mistake. They made 5." And this is where Hunter's like,
no,
like,
you didn't. Yeah, you didn't tell her.
Yeah, he didn't tell her. So
I'm going to stand over here.
Yeah, and that was probably a little bit hard for her to swallow, right? Feeling like she was betrayed and feeling like unwanted in that moment, especially, you know what I mean? Like, especially for kids, they're so like sensitive and they have feelings and emotions. It's weird, but
and she idolizes Hunter. Yeah, so.
Absolutely right. Yeah, so for that to happen was pretty significant. I think, especially since and she's very reluctant to go. She doesn't want to go, and this is where we kind of have that whole exchange where she's like saying, "No, I want to be with you. I don't want to do this." And I think she gets it. I mean, she comes across a lot more mature than she probably is age wise. Although I saw somebody say that she was 5. She's not 5 years old. There's no 5-year-old that speaks that way. And whoever said that, you don't have kids. She's got to be somewhere. I mean, I think what did we put her at? Like 8, maybe?
Yeah, I was somewhere in the ballpark at 10. Yeah.
Yeah, somewhere between 8 and 10. Sorry. And if she is 5 and I've not done the math or I haven't gone to see on Wikipedia or whatever how old she is, then there's no 5-year-old that speaks this way. I'm sorry. There's just not. Now, you could chalk it up to, she's accelerated aging because she's a clone and all of that. But still.
Look, Grogu's 50 and can't make out a word. Come on.
That's true.
Don't know if it's apples to apples, but I'm going to go with that.
We get to see Wrecker pull the mag clamp off. We got to see Hunter go, on some of the troopers. All that sequence was really good. I mean, it was really kind of one of the few action sequences that we had, but I thought it was really good. We got to see Hunter, or what's his name, Wrecker, bonk the heads of the
I love the sound.
Troopers.
Like coconut sounds.
Yep.
And I guess, we had speculated in the speculation show, the Final Hype show, that Hunter was kind of pulling his punches, if you will, and shooting not to kill. I think we
not
can put
in
that,
this one.
Yeah, I think we can put that to rest, that he was no, this is a matter of survival. Whatever I shoot, I shoot.
Mm-hmm. And, whatever I cut, I cut. I think he stabbed someone. Well, I need to go. We probably should go back and just watch that carefully, because knowing them, they make it look really close to him hurting. If you play it slow-mo, you realize that no, he just kind of, grazed him, or it was actually the weapon that he hit, not them. But I don't know. I'm with you there, though. It felt like it was fight or flight at that point for him, especially in that father figure role of, I've got to protect my child, and I'm the Papa Bear trapped in the corner kind of thing. Yeah, he's going to fight his way out of there, Logan-esque style, to bring that back over.
Mm-hmm.
And then they eventually rescue her. This is where Cut's nearly identified as the trooper at the very end there. He's like, "You look," and then, there's the battle's going on. So there's that other droid, or the other trooper comes by and he's like, "Hey, we need you over here. We need fodder." Okay. Yeah. And so he leaves, and that's how they get away. So, and at that point, the Bad Batch jumps in their ship, they get away, and everybody goes their separate ways. So
yeah, we get our touching moment between Hunter and Omega. If this is where you want to be, then this is where you'll stay.
Right.
And so a couple of things we didn't quite touch on. We were going to talk a little bit more about the inhibitor chip, with the behavior we saw with the clones when the guy had already bought his trip, but he didn't have a what's it called, chain code.
Yep.
He was trying to struggle past, and they were like, "Get back, citizen," and shoved him to the ground. And I mean, really, the starting to see the true Imperial type of brutality and physical kind of violence and responses
The
to
oppression.
yeah, exactly. We're already seeing this happen. And again, I think you had made a point that we were going to touch on of the clones weren't like this. I mean, they were battling for civilians. They were protecting civilians. They were fighting the good fight, right? And now they are like in this brainwash type of state. I mean, the chip, I think to your point probably is that it completely reinforces everything that they want the Empire to be. And regardless of what all of their experiences are, you don't know that person anymore. Is that kind of the path you were leaning?
Yeah, I mean, well, so the name feels like a misnomer at this point. Inhibitor meaning it's preventing something, right? And and I guess if you take the route that they are now different people altogether with the ability to somehow manage to still have memories or harbor feelings, as we talked about in the last episode, ill will feelings towards like the Bad Batch, and they remember what that was like, right? As regs compared to them. But if they are inhibiting anything, it feels like, okay, this is a personality inhibitor, right?
Right. Exactly.
It's not a even if you're inhibiting the existing personality. So what? I guess maybe there's programming in there that defaults them to literally a default setting, right? Going back to how they originally were supposed to be programmed, which is maybe what we're seeing now, which is this very callous, insensitive, oppression-driven kind of troop or force. Maybe that's it. Maybe that is their default setting, and without the inhibitor chip enabled, it allowed them to be unique and be individualistic and have these personalities and all of that. So that would be an easy way to explain it, but to simply think of it as an inhibitor chip and preventing them from, not attacking Palpatine or going against the orders, just
Right.
that very general blanket kind of a statement, that seems really hard to get past, knowing, like you said, that this is really different. The personalities are completely and totally different. So there's a lot more going on here. And that's why I think it would be interesting for them to kind of further explore that and really get into the details, because I think the details matter when it comes to that.
Right. Yeah. It's more like you said. Is it a suppression of your true self to where you do remember some things, or is it just this when it triggered it like triggered like a rewrite type of program?
Yeah.
And it just completely recoded them to how they want them to be post Republic, right? And that there was a distinct difference between the two, and this is how they wanted them to behave, or something along those lines. But I'm with you. I really hope they explain a little more detail what exactly that experience is like and why they are just so fundamentally different, besides just saying, oh no, well the Jedi are the enemy of the Republic because they did something treasonous, so now they're all bad. So clearly, I don't know, they're not hive mind like that. So I hope we get something. I know it gets a bit technical and people may not want to always hear that, but I think it would be interesting to go and revisit, even if it's just like a chapter in a book or several pages of a discussion or something like that.
Well, and I think if they again, it depends on where the story's going. If they are going down this path of, liberation for the clones and redemption for the clones, which I think would be great, then yeah, I think they're going to have to get into it. I don't think they can get around it. Maybe they can. Maybe they just say, "Oh, we're going to."
Agreed.
They do something really cheesy, but there's an opportunity there for them to kind of get into some of the weeds and details about how these things work and how they don't and all that. So
yeah, I mean, we saw a little bit of it in Clone Wars, but it's been a while since I've watched it, so I'm trying to remember exactly how they felt kind of before and after, because they usually didn't live very long after that. So I'll know that we got a real good idea of that anyway. But
yeah, because Rex was kind of he was in killer mode. Yeah. Right. I mean, at least towards Ahsoka, he of all people, Ahsoka, he was kind of in killer mode and really trying to fight it. And so, yeah, there is definitely more going on there. I mean, it does feel like it's either a reprogramming or a reset or some sort, much more than just inhibiting their abilities to do things, or they're inhibiting the ability to harm Palpatine. And I think I'm pulling some of this from Legends too.
Maybe.
Right. I think there used to be all the, I don't know if you've ever seen, there's more. If you want to go out there, it's kind of fun read now. But they actually labeled and came up with a lot of other orders in Legends continuity. So there was Order 65, 79, whatever, and blah, blah, blah. And there's all these different cool contingencies and stuff in there. But I mean, all that, again, is Legends. But maybe that's where I'm pulling this whole thing about the inhibitor chip. Order 66 was to made them like totally allegiant to the emperor, and they could not harm the emperor either. That was kind of one of the things that was in there. But
right,
all
and
right.
I think Rex is one of those conduits that we could get that story right. And I think that's, if we're going to get it in the series, that seems the most likely of places that we're going to have some idea of what's going on and why Rex was able to at least hold back from it. Because maybe he's a similar situation as Cut, where he just doesn't have something's either defective with it or he's a little bit different, because he's already challenged what does life look like afterwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
As he's been subjected to, or as he's experienced some of these other ways of thinking and other ways of living.
Yeah. The other thing we didn't mention before we get to the very final scene, which is not a lot, but we didn't talk about the credits, right? They were giving that guy a hard time because he had a churn in his credits. Imperial credits were now kind of the currency, and we know that becomes the currency really for a number of years. But then when we get to Mando, it's like worth nothing.
Right.
So interesting that it's going to go from, how things are just kind of shifting, and this is all that big vacuum that we've talked about. It's all kind of getting set up. The vacuum of the Empire disappearing by the time we get to the Mandalorian, and what kind of holes it leaves, and how everything is unstable. We're seeing the stability, at least from the Empire side, starting to kind of take shape and form early on here, which I think is great. So hopefully we'll see more of that.
We can crank out the Star Destroyers, but hey, give us a little bit of time with the currency. Okay, we're getting this figured out. We got to get the mint set up. We got to get it moved over from Republic. Yeah, was it Republic Dectarians or whatever they were called?
Yes.
So
they got to change the faces. It's now Palpatine.
Oh, man, that's right. They got to completely redo the presses and everything.
Yeah, a lot to think about.
It is. Man, it's tough running Empire. New Patreon episode: Empathy for Palpatine. No.
We end with the aboard the Havoc Marauder once again, and this is where we get your scene there. You're talking about with Wrecker curling that gonk droid.
Yeah. Which
I think we've seen him before.
Yeah,
there was an episode where he was powerlifting one or something. I think it was in season 7 he was doing it. So this is not unusual for him. But yeah, I mean, she left Kamino for them, and this is where she says, "This is where I want to be." And he says, "Well, if this is where you want to be, this is where you're going to stay." And I put in notes they have a lot to learn, and I think this is the first step. I think they're going to continue to learn from each other, which would you'd want from any kind of a relationship or a storyline. But yeah, it kind of ends there, and it was good. I mean, they where they go from here, we'll talk about here in just one second. But I guess any final thoughts on that last bit there?
Yeah, this one really very open-ended about where they're going. We have no idea what their plan is at this point. I don't know that they know either, but no, I like this. And it's good to see that Hunter is having these, you can already see his growth already happening. And again, it's a bit expected, I suppose. But again, I thought this was a really good balance of, you get enough kind of excitement in the episode. We're learning more things about it, but I like seeing people experience things for the first time. And we get a lot of that with Omega and Hunter, and even Cut and Sue. Like, things are changing, and then these transition times are just really interesting. And you can start to see it with kind of the boots on the ground and what the normal everyday civilian. I mean, this is a farming community. Why is this such a big deal? Why are they here? It's like why is the Empire on Tatooine? Some things don't make a lot of sense, but yet they're everywhere now. They should be pulling their forces back, but instead we're building it up. It doesn't make sense. The war's over. And it'll be interesting to see what other experiences they have as they go throughout the galaxy, and just how well they're able to keep their heads down here, and before they start running into all the other folks that we know are kind of starting to come back. And so you can just go ahead and turn this off right now if you don't want to hear the title of the next episode. But the next episode is called Replacements, not The Replacements. It just says Replacements. And the quick synopsis, and I thought maybe Keanu Reeves was in it.
No. There was one also with the Replacements, I think, with Chow Yun-Fat and what's her name? Oh, well. Not important. Okay, so we'll just edit that right out. No, we won't. No, but Replacements, and it says the Batch, as they're being called. So I guess we got to start calling them the Batch.
No.
The Batch, kind of like the boys. The Batch gets stuck on a desolate moon. There you go. Figure it out from there. Any thoughts, theories, speculation about what's going to happen based on that?
I don't know. Do we need to put money on that? It's like Endor or something? The forced mode of Endor?
Well, I think I saw so the trailer's already out, or at least it was leaked, and it doesn't look like they're going there. Okay. If that helps you, but it's hard to say.
God, we are not going back to Tatooine, are we?
No, we're not going back to Tatooine.
Oh,
it kind of looks like Tatooine, to be honest. But no, it is not.
Jakku.
There we go. Why does everybody want to go back to Jakku? But no, I would say it does look like it's starting to take shape of the A-Team. Like there's okay, so not this episode. Okay, please turn it off if you don't want to hear this stuff. So not this episode, but the following episode, they're like talking about taking on like mercenary missions and like doing things for money. And so and then when I saw that, I'm like, okay, this sounds now a lot like the A-Team. Because if you remember the old intro for the A-Team, you know, if maybe you can hire the A-Team, the whole thing starts off. And it's kind of a similar situation where they're on the run. They've got very unique capabilities and skill sets. And man, I'm telling you what, I would be totally down.
Who is
for a
Murdoch?
modernized version of the A-Team with Star Wars somehow mixed into it.
I want to know who Murdoch is.
That's got to be Wrecker. I mean, there's no one else really.
And
I mean, his face was the the comedian, if you will.
Right. They don't even have a face. I guess Hannibal would be Hunter, and who else was there? Who was the other one? Oh, BA.
BA would be
has to be Wrecker.
They're kind of a combination of a lot of different ones, right. I guess. Yeah.
And who's Omega? April from Knight Rider.
No,
could blend all the shows now.
I guess she would be like the Hannibal. I don't know if she's like the. I guess that
she sucks on a cigar. She loves it when a plan comes together.
I don't know.
This is becoming the basement now.
Oh yeah, it really is. We got to get out of here.
You can tell we were having some withdrawals in the basement.
Yeah. 28 minutes is the runtime on the next episode, so it's going to be a quick in and out episode on that one as well. But before we get out of here, let's see. Ryman 6000 said shared the podcast for you guys. Thank you so much. That is very, very cool of you doing. Really, thank you for that. And then thanks for teaching us about the Scomp link. So scomping, we're going to scomp out of here at this point. Before we go, please consider subbing to the YouTube channel so you don't miss any episodes that come up. We're going to be doing this. We'll be here all week. We'll be here for the next 14 weeks covering the Bad Batch. Typically every Sunday night. We didn't do it because Mother's Day is tomorrow, but I think we're getting back on our normal cadence. Although next Sunday we have our 10th anniversary episode. Spectacular with Mike coming back on the show, and we're just going to reminisce about the Cantina Cast, but we will be doing another show for episode 3, the replacements here next weekend as well.
Just replacements.
Thank you. It's going to be hard to snuff out. And then the other thing I was going to mention is if you are so inclined, and we would really appreciate a review on iTunes. We're still trying to dig our whole way out of some of these really silly reviews that people put a bunch of garbage and then give us like 1 star or say, man, you guys are awesome. And then they hit the wrong button. I guess they gave us like 1 star. Like, no, wait, you got to go back. You got to change that. And we've actually tried to reach out to them and said, hey, we really appreciate the kind words, but you kind of gave us 1 star and we think you meant to do the 5 stars. So, but yeah, if you haven't done so, please consider going out into iTunes and helping us get that number up a little bit more. We would appreciate that. So, all right, I've gone on enough. Jonesy, do you have any final words? Anything before we get out of here?
No, huge thanks to everybody in the chat. Again, Sunday, May 16th is the 10th anniversary of the Cantina Cast. Please come out for the live stream. Mike will be with us. You can razz him and roast him and all the good things. Ask us questions, things like that as we go through. We're going to have a fun little game. You don't want to miss that. So
he doesn't know about it either yet. So
no, well, he has no idea what it is. And so, Mike, he's right. Like, all right, I don't care. But please come out for it. We'd love to see everyone. If you've listened to the show at all, or if you know someone who has, please come out. It's going to be great fun, and we'd love to hear other people's stories of their favorite moments too. And it might be fun to ask Mike for some of his infinite wisdom.
I wouldn't say infinite. I think it is finite at some point, but
I don't even know if it's wisdom or not. But we have to be nice. He does help pay the bills, so
it does.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, we'll see you guys in about a week in the next episode.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property, and all that other good fun stuff. But I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what. So that's your disclaimer.